I'm Rosh from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat with industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities, asking the renewable energy questions you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. Today, I am very excited to be joined by Dennis Savic, the founder and CEO for Savic Motorcycles. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Hey, Roshan. Doing well. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a great chatting to you, mate. I'm actually chatting to a tech specialist and a future TV celebrity all at the same time, given that you're going to be on our new television show pretty soon.
Oh, I don't know, but yeah, or maybe we'll see how we go. Hopefully, I don't bomb too hard. We'll see.
No, guys, I don't want to overset your expectations either. So hopefully one person will watch a TV show, but I'm pretty sure we'll have a good audience.
Yeah.
Dennis, there's obviously lots to talk about. Obviously, certainly I want to be chatting about the television show because it's super exciting. But before we get into that, I would like to learn a little bit more about you. I mean, to set the context for the audience, you guys have designed and developed and built an amazing electric motorcycle manufacturing base here in Australia, in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I've seen electric bikes, I've heard of electric bikes, but never really seen any up close and personal. So I was absolutely blown away when I checked out your workshop and saw what you had on display. But before we get into that, it's very exciting. I know our audience always likes to know a little bit more about the person behind the brand. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Dennis, as a boy growing up and where your passion from bikes came from?
Yeah. So in terms of where it comes from, I don't really know, to be honest. I didn't get from my old man. I'm a bit of a black sheep in the family. Like, I'm the only one that kind of likes to swing spanners, and I guess I'm just a bit of an inventor at heart. My dad does have a very close friend who sat me on his motorbike when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I still kind of cherish that photo. So maybe that's where it started. But I developed a passion for automotive design and automotive in general when I was like 7, and then decided I wanted to build a motorbike when I was 14, and then discovered electric propulsion when I was 16. And 16, 17 years ago, showing my age here, electric propulsion definitely wasn't mainstream. It was like super early days, and something just clicked in me. Like, for 2 reasons. One, I hypothesized really amazing performance and acceleration. Before really understanding any kind of physics, I suppose. And the second was, I liked that it gave me a lot of freedom to design whatever I wanted. So, if you're designing a new vehicle around a combustion engine, you've got that as a really fixed variable, I suppose, in the design process. And an electric propulsion system meant that our motor could be a lot smaller, and we could put batteries in different spots, and you could do kind of interesting things with them and stuff. And so I kind of like that. And I don't know, look, I think I got told I wouldn't go to uni and I couldn't build a bike, and so maybe I've just been trying to prove those people wrong for the last decade.
Yeah, so you're probably
we've gotten there.
Probably very, very stubborn, but also like ahead of your time as well in terms of thinking. I mean, there's you come across people in your life that invariably do what their parents have done, and follow a system, follow a route, through education and into career based upon what they're told is the right thing to do. And then you have your variables like yourself that just kind of come up with something that you're really into. And want to explore and push it. To be fair, just a sidetrack, I can actually, you're probably too young for Back to the Future, but I can imagine
man, I love Back to the Future. It's such a good series, yeah.
Mate, it's amazing, right? I can imagine you forget the DeLorean, a Back to the Future electric motorcycle, right?
Yeah.
And you probably will actually build it, right? You got the brain. So what was the very, very first bike that you built?
So the very first bike that I owned was a CBR 250RR, and that was actually the first bike I reverse engineered when I really started delving deep into CAD and 3D modeling. But the first bike that we built in this particular journey was a conversion of a Yamaha R1. So that's a 1000 cc
Yeah, it's a
liter,
fast
very
bike.
very very impressive sports bike.
Yeah,
And yeah, that was kind of our initial strategy, was to try and build a 200 kilowatt, monster machine. And then, in studying entrepreneurship and business alongside everything else, you kind of realize how small the market is for like 100, $200,000 retail price vehicles. So,
yeah,
we definitely pivoted at that point and said, right, well, we can't really build that. We'll build something with, 40 to 60 kilowatts of power, and it's a lot more, well, it will be a lot more affordable once we're in production, and so on and so forth. So we ended up converting a 1000 cc Yamaha R1 to something that had an off-the-shelf powertrain with 40 odd kilowatts of power. And um, the cells we were using were relatively hobby grade cells, um, and so yeah, it started there, and then from there we built our first ever ground up vehicle, which barely rolled,
yeah.
but there's a lot of
How
fundamental lessons there.
how fast was the R1 when you finished modifying it? Was it still quick?
Originally, like as a petrol bike
Oh
or as an
well,
electric?
I know the petrol version is
Petrol bike's
absolutely it's
very
like a
quick.
rocket.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
What?
were a lot slower, put it that way. Yeah, but look, it was still it gave us that taste of, and this is before electric was even really available. I mean, zero motorcycles were in the Australian market prior to me doing that, but they weren't that common. There wasn't many around at all.
Yeah,
So I hadn't had the opportunity to ride one, and so riding that, um, the acceleration was so linear and so smooth,
yeah,
and so even though it had a chain, it was a lot quieter than a petrol engine, right? And so I think I got my first taste of what it was like to just glide through the air, if you will, and
yeah,
just, I think because of that direct throttle to acceleration input that you have,
yeah.
maybe you feel a bit more at one with the vehicle, because you're just so in control. And the bike that we have now, that the customer test riding, it's a completely different beast, and it would give, a 1000 cc bike a run for its money off the line, which is pretty
No.
awesome. So that's yeah, super super fun.
Well, I've seen one on the road when we're doing the filming of the TV show, and
Yeah,
look, I can't give any facts and figures in respect to the or the Bayside Council and the speed limits, but the
yeah,
bike was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the
yeah,
acceleration from 0 to the speed limit was
yeah.
phenomenal, and um,
Always
and
to the speed limit. That's right.
always the speed limit, and it was just like it was poetry in motion. We'll get into that in a sec. I want to
Yeah,
know more. So,
yeah.
building Savage from scratch. I mean, first and foremost, how did you get your team together? I mean, did you advertise? Were they just mates? How did it happen?
Um, yeah, I would say serendipity has had a big role to play in our really organic team building. We have a lot of people reaching out to us all the time, asking if we're looking for people to, to fill roles and what have you. So um, we've never really advertised. We've only advertised once, and I suspect as we scale, we'll probably have to approach
Yeah.
recruitment in a more traditional sense. But the core team that we have now are amazing. What we've done wouldn't have been possible without the team that we have, and it has grown super organically. So we had an initial team, because I started the business in WA in Perth, and then moved
Okay.
it all over to Melbourne, and that's where we assemble all our bikes now. Um, and so I built like a team here in Perth, and then we dissolved that when we decided to move to Melbourne, and we built a new team in Melbourne. And again, I was on my own in Melbourne. I had a couple of guys helping me out here and there, and then we ran a couple of projects with some final year uni students. And the way that happened was like super coincidental. But there were two students that I worked with that year, Kim and Adrian. And Kim is now our vehicle software engineer, and Adrian is basically our CTO.
Wow.
Then in 2018, I basically showed Adrian how to use CAD, and now his knowledge of the deep technological aspects of our product far exceed mine, which is infuriating. as an engineer, but everyone on our team is super talented. Like Sam, our marketing manager, was studying graphic design and wanted to do a little side project for us, and ended up wanting to try photography. And by the time it was all said and done, he joined us full time, was our full time content creator, does all that, and he's just an amazing, amazing, amazing worker, but just an amazing human being. And I think pretty much is across the board for our whole team. We've got this incredible culture, and I'm definitely a little bit of like an overprotective boyfriend when it comes to our culture. Like I really don't want that to disappear, and we're going to try and maintain that for as long as possible.
And really, for me, like culture stuff is like the head stinks from the head down, or the fish, sorry, stinks from the head down, and the same thing applies, with culture, right? It's really the responsibility, in my opinion, of the leader, and like yourself, like as a CEO, it's you're responsible for creating that. But then at the same token, when your team, their ethos is built on passion, excitement, innovation, ingenuity, pushing the status quo. It's really, it really gives you that edge, because there's something so exciting, especially what you guys are up to, and you literally push, you're reinventing it on the day-to-day basis, right? So, but
and
I mean,
I'll just add to that, like it's really helpful to have that in any early stage business, because you're going to have difficult periods, and if you're really not passionate about what you're doing, and not into what you're doing, it makes what you're doing so much harder. And we've gone through some incredibly tough times over the last 5 years, and like incredibly difficult challenges. I can't really stress how difficult some of them have been enough. It's like really freaking hard. And the team has stuck together, and that's, I think, because of two things. One is we're all incredibly passionate. We don't really want to do anything else at this point in time, so that kind of helps. But the second thing is we've been so close, and we've just seen such incremental progress as we've gone along, that if you quit at one point, what's the last 4 or 5 years been for? And we all really love working together as well. So it's, the culture is just so important in an early stage business.
Can you sort of just give anyone watching a bit of a sort of, I suppose, how does one of the electric vehicle or electric motorcycles that you design and you've got out there on the road differentiate from a traditional combustion motorcycle?
Mechanically and dynamically, it's very little different. So, we've, I was a weight engineer at Ford, so like that's my bread and butter. And so, weight distribution, center of gravity location was like really important to me, not just because of my previous experience, but on a motorcycle, it's so critical. If your center of gravity is too high, the bike wants to fall over. If it's too low, it handles like a boat. And so there is this optimum location. And I'm really happy to say that with some suspension development and tuning, we've got this thing it's stable at low speed, and you can throw it around at speed, and it's just super fun. So just as a motorcycle in general, it's very similar. It's like just like riding another motorbike, right? And that doesn't sound like a selling point, but it's definitely ensures that guys that do ride a lot of petrol bikes and have only ridden petrol bikes are comfortable on the bike from within 20 meters of taking a bike out. Having said that, on the powertrain side, the quietness, the power delivery is so different. So again, like our acceleration is so incredibly linear. And even though there's a lot of power there, you feel so in control because it is so linear. It's going to do exactly what you tell it to do. You're not going to hit power bands or what have you. It's just a very different torque profile. The favorite thing for me is the quietness. Like I'm a super vanilla rider. I would love to do more track days. I just don't have the time for it with a young family and a business at this stage. And I will do it eventually. I'd love to do off-road riding a little bit more as well. But I'm very much a if I'm going out for a ride, I'm going half an hour up and down the coast just to like relax and unwind. And the fact that I don't have to change gears, the fact that it's quiet and I don't get that, a lot of noise. I personally really like that. And when you kind of get into this like mode when you're riding, when you're not really thinking about anything else, after a little while, and I find myself, especially when I'm going up and down the coast, I just kind of like glide, and I'm just gliding through the air. I'm on the road, but and there's super stunning views, uninterrupted views by any kind of noise or distraction. Now, having said that, the bike isn't dead silent. It still turns heads because it's a really different noise. Um, and you can hear it a little bit over the wind noise, like in your helmet, but it's not by any stretch, deafening. And I love that feeling of just gliding through the air. There's something about we went to an event in regional New South Wales down in Berry, the Berry Motor Festival. It's awesome. If you haven't been there in New South Wales, definitely go. Um, we were the only bike there. It's a very high-end car or classic collectible car type event. But Berry has a couple of kind of foresty mountain things, and we took a couple of bikes up there before the show, and that was awesome. Because you're going at speeds where the belt noise isn't too loud.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by forest, and we were just gliding. It was amazing. So yeah, I really encourage people to test ride these things. They're just so much fun.
I can imagine. Like, I mean, I personally am a fan of convertibles, so I've had a convertible for like over 24 years.
Yeah.
I'm all about reuse, right? So I don't turn over my car
Yeah.
every year. And
Yeah.
before everyone starts jumping down the road, we have got a hybrid as well. But my little 2-seater roadster, she's lovely, and I love it because I can drop the hood, sun shining, and I can just be at one with nature. Unfortunately, my car is a bit loud, so it's not crazy, but it's but you can hear the engine. So for me, just riding one of your bikes and having that power, but having the experience of just tranquility and everything that you love about that freedom, and you've just described it so perfectly. With the wind blowing, nature around you. And even if you weren't absolutely throttled, going hell for leather, but just cruising. Visor up if it wasn't too windy or anything being blown in your face. It'd just be absolutely stunning. So I think anyone watching, I mean, your bikes fundamentally are designed for absolutely any type of rider. I mean, they are more, I think anyone commuting to and from work would be an ideal sort of candidate to buy one of these bikes. And then just going for a hop on a weekend as well as you just described.
Exactly. I mean, that's we've thought long and hard. How do we? Because there's different markets for and market segments in our performance niche. And there's people that love to ride cruisers, that people love to ride adventure bikes, and you think, well, how are we going to tap into the adventure bike market? And the reality is, the technology just doesn't lend itself to adventure riding. You're not going to go on an 800-kilometer ride in a weekend on any electric motorcycle. Even with charging infrastructure, it's still going to be inconvenient. And so I think there is a technology coming down the track that will probably unlock that market, but it's not going to be for another 5 to 10 years. The technology, like you said, lends itself perfectly to commuting, daily commuting. You don't have the inconvenience of stopping at a petrol station. You just charge at home. Most people commute for less than 50 kilometers a day. And so, we've got plenty of juice in the tank for that. And so, what our job is to make your commute as stylish and as fun as possible. And then, going out for a weekend ride, you've got 100-kilometer radius you can kind of get to on our bike. And if you stop for lunch and can charge up for a couple of hours, even better. So, I think for a lot of people, that bike ticks the box. And we have a big customer base. This isn't going to be their only bike. They're going to have our bike for their daily stuff, and it's probably going to be their favorite bike, if I may be so bold to say. But they've got another bike for the longer rides. They've probably got a GS or something that is, has had decades of engineering and development that's gone into it specifically for that use. And so, we're totally okay with that. And I think we'll just evolve with the times, but we're super proud of what we've done so far.
No, and you should be. It's absolutely wonderful and absolutely fantastic. A couple last quick questions before we get into the show. In terms of where you're at now with production, so you've gone through the hard yards. I've seen your workshop. It's stunning. We'll be showing it in depth on the show. And it looks more like a surgeon's office. I mean, it's immaculate. It's clean.
I won't go that. I definitely wouldn't want to have surgery in there, but we try and keep it clean. Yeah.
It looks remarkably. You probably made it even cleaner for the shoot, but it was absolutely pristine. And there's no oil, there's no grease, there's no you don't have to smell that petrol, which I like the smell of petrol anyway. But you don't smell petrol, when you walk in. So it doesn't really feel like you're in a workshop, especially for a motorcycle or a motor vehicle of any type.
Correct. Yeah.
But in terms of production now you've got kind of everything lined up. You've made, you've obviously releasing your first bikes. How many bikes realistically can you turn over every single day, every single week, every single year? What's the goals?
Well, look, our facility production capacity is 20 a month. At the moment, we've delivered a few. We plan on delivering a few more in February. We plan on producing 10 in March and then scaling up to 15 and so on and so forth. We do have some things in the works in the background that will help, unlock that supply limitation. So, hopefully by the end of this year, we've got a production capacity of, 5,000 units a year.
Oh, wow.
And then really the limiting barrier will be distribution, and how do we scale the distribution to support that manufacturing capacity. And there's two main things that we need to achieve before we really look at scaling, and that's addressing and minimizing any potential warranty issues, because if we scale before we've addressed everything there, we're just going to shoot ourselves in the foot. And I was going to say a second thing, and I can't remember what that is now. So
it'll come back to
you. Basically that's the plan, just to chip away.
And really, I mean, I suppose $1 million question for anyone watching, everyone's thinking, this sounds amazing. Once they see the clip I'm about to show, then they'll just be like, wow, okay, I want one. How much is it? If you wanted to buy one today, rocked up to Savic Motorcycles in Melbourne, and said, Dennis, sell me a bike. How much would they cost?
So we've got, the C series is the product that we've brought to market initially, and there's two variants of the C series, the Alpha and the Delta. The Alpha retails for $26,990 and the Delta retails for $19,990. Those prices are probably going to go up at some stage, not by much, but by a little bit. And that's basically that. The only difference between them is battery pack size and the motor internals. And what that means is that you get more power and range out of an Alpha spec vehicle. The same options are available. We've got carbon body options. We've got various headlight options now. There's more options coming down the track. But as a business, we need to commonize as many components as possible to bring the cost down. And so we're super excited for the end of this year to see where we get to. But there's two variants, and like 80 to 90% of our orders are for the Alpha spec vehicle. People want that power and that range, which is awesome. There's a lot of people that sit in the Delta. By the time it comes time to like finalizing their order, they switch over to an Alpha because they just want to. So it's a great little machine. But I'm definitely not a sales guy, so I can't sell you this pen. But all I can really say is, like, if you commute, or if you like to go out for shorter weekend rides, sub 200 kilometers, and you want to do it in a very stylish, kind of classic looking way, like our bike is so well positioned for that. Like when we take our bike to wineries occasionally, and they just fit in, and going to that super high-end car display at Berry Motor Festival, we didn't look out of place at all. So I think we've achieved that with the aesthetic design.
Well, look, without the noise, I mean, all of a sudden, your bike's actually welcome, because really, I think fundamentally, anyone that's not a motorcycle enthusiast probably has a look of disdain when they just hear, the scream of a car down their high street or on the coastline outside their apartment. And that's probably what puts people off. They immediately just assume, oh God, there's another one of those. But then when you have with your bike, because it is so quiet, I think it's almost purpose built for the way, the way cities are evolving. I mean, it's becoming high density living. There's going to be a lot of people in a very small space, which opens up another conversation, which is around parking. Because fundamentally, if you've got a couple hundred people in a very small radius of accommodation, where are you going to stick your car? And so having an electric motorbike actually fixes that as a problem. So I think when you look at the future, public transport aside, the next best is an electric motorcycle. Unless you're really, really close to work, then you'll just get a scooter. But look, very, very good stuff there. So let's have a quick look at the show.
All of the feedback we've had was that it's super easy to handle, it's nimble, we've got the center of gravity in the right spot.
The power delivery is instantaneous, the torque is there from the get-go. It's a different noise, and I like the noise that the electric bikes make. It's like a jet engine.
I mean, we are so excited to feature this on our television show, Energy Matters. Can you just tell us, first and foremost, tell me about the bikes that we'll be featuring on the show and what we actually saw?
So I think from memory, because we filmed it a little while ago, from memory, we had a carbon-bodied bike, which is one of our customer demo vehicles, go out on the road. You'll have a look at the factory. I believe we had a bike that was in the process of being built, so you'll be able to see some of the internals. I do believe that bike was a previous engineering vehicle, so just full disclosure, the internal harness is a little bit neater than that now. But yeah, that's basically it. At the end of the day, we've got a pretty small and humble home, with a small pilot factory. So it's not too flashy, but it gets the job done.
It's amazing because really in that square footage, it really tells the entire, as I said to you, I was embarrassed at the start of this conversation because it kind of shows the full story of how how it started. You've done really, really well in terms of addressing the history and story of Savic, through your sort of media wall, if you like, where you sort of shared all your photos of where it began and the journey and the steps you've taken and the milestones. And then that's all in the sort of showroom at the front. And then you took us behind the scenes into the workshop. And as I said, it's like a surgery. It's just precision, it's clean, it's organized. And then you've just got your bikes up there on display. So as you mentioned just now, we did see one without the sort of the chat or the cover, that is not the chest on the bottom, without the shell. And although it's very different, whereas as you said in the show, the engine has a lot of moving parts, and this obviously doesn't have an engine. When you look at how many different components there are to make up that motorcycle, it was absolutely incredible. So I think the audience is going to be blown away. I mean, really, in terms of the assembly process, is it literally a case of, and if you can generate one a day from your team, how many people does it take to assemble that bike?
So look, we're not at one a day just yet. We plan on being at about one a day by June this year. But at the moment, and our goal is to get that to one per day per person. That's kind of the target. So you can work out how many minutes it takes. We count the assembly process in minutes. How many minutes it takes to assemble a full bike. So the luxury we have as a low volume producer is that we don't need to be producing a vehicle every minute and a half like the very high volume producers do, and that actually drives a lot of your assembly and manufacturing strategy. And so, even at 5,000 units a year, that means you're only actually producing a bike every 90 minutes. And so you do have a lot of freedom and flexibility around how you manufacture. You don't need, a huge number of people to produce a bike that frequently. And so we're able to keep manufacturing quite lean. We are using a degree of automation in the next stage of our manufacturing facility, which we're in the process of setting up now. But again, we can keep the team quite light, the process relatively simple, and yeah, basically achieve it that way. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
It does. It does. Well, look, for anyone, for everyone watching, you're going to have to tune in. Engine Matters goes live from the 29th of March, as you've seen from the down there since the very beginning of this conversation. Shameless advertising. I apologize.
That's good. That's great.
It's subliminal learning. So it's going to be absolutely incredible. And Savic Motorcycles is just an absolute joy to feature on our show. We're looking to tell the story of how everybody can achieve net zero. And really, by achieving net zero, not only are you reducing your carbon footprint, helping the planet, and obviously, reducing the impact of global warming. At the same token, you're saving money as well. And in this particular case, with these particular motorcycles, you're saving on a whole bunch of stuff, from fuel, from maintenance, and really, when we looked at, as we spoke about high density living in the future, really it's just a better choice for transportation. So, I think what's going to come out of this, Dennis, and this is what I prophesize, is that there'll be a shift. I think once people actually get to jump on a bike and test drive it and understand it, I think you're going to convert a lot of people into, from cars to bikes.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, you can just hypothesize these things. But yeah, and there's always going to be traditionalists, and you talked about your car and the smell of petrol and that kind of stuff. I'm actually the proud owner of a 1949 BSA Bantam D1.
Wow.
Like I love really old school. I love, V8 Mustangs and stuff like that as well. I'd work on them too, so, people sometimes put me in this pigeonhole of EV only, hates petrol. And it's just simply not true. But, I think what we have built is different. And it's that really similar experience of when you go from your car into a Tesla or a BYD electric car and you experience that acceleration and that way of driving. Our bike really, really does that. And we've only had, a few handful of customer test rides to date. We've just kind of turned that on, and we're doing test rides, almost every day now for customers and prospective customers. And so far the feedback's just been 100% positive, and people love the thing. And so that's really awesome. After half a decade of engineering, for people to like what you've built is a pretty good win. But I think you're right. I think there will be a lot of conversions that happen that didn't expect to be converted. And I don't say that to try and sound arrogant. I hope it doesn't. I think that's, people don't know what they don't know. And when they do experience it, they'll be like, wow, this is actually something very different and something really nice. So yeah, we'll see how we go anyways.
Absolutely fantastic. So aside from your workshop or your showroom in East Melbourne, where else can someone find your bike if they want to see? Are you exhibiting anywhere? Are you going to be, where? And obviously aside from the television show, of course, but how can they actually jump on and test drive it?
So at the moment, we've got test rides happening in Melbourne and Perth. So we've got two showrooms, one in Melbourne, one in Perth. Yep. We've got partners we're in the process of bringing on in Queensland and New South Wales. We're working on South Australia. We've only got a couple of customers in Tasmania and Northern Territory. So we're still figuring out what we're going to do there. And so, yeah, at the moment, it's just Melbourne and Perth. Yep. We do have events happening in Adelaide and Sydney on the 8th and 9th of March. So I don't know if this will air before then. But everything electric in Sydney, will have a couple of bikes there with people doing test rides on all weekend. Adelaide Motorsport Festival, still a little bit up in the air whether we do test rides or not, but we will have 3 bikes on track with racing riders doing dynamic displays of our bike very, very publicly, which I'm personally super excited about. I think it's going to be awesome because these things sound completely different when they're at speed. So I'm super excited for people to see that. And so, yeah, at the moment, that's where we're at. And yeah, we should have a more nationwide presence, I suspect, by the end of the year.
Fantastic. Well, mate, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, Dennis, it's an absolute, it's just such a joy to chat to you, obviously experience that passion and also get a real clear sense of the highs and lows, but the highs again of the journey that is Savic Motorcycles. Once again, everyone watching, definitely tune into our show and jump onto Savic's own website, which is it savicmotorcycles.com.au?
Just .com.
.com.
Yep.
And we've also got a page on the NG Matters website. So if you jump onto ngmatters.com.au, just go to the bottom, you'll see a little logo under electric vehicles. Click that, and we have a page dedicated to Savic, which kind of outlines their bikes and also has a shortcut to their actual website as well. Dennis, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Roshan. This was an awesome thing to do with you guys, and your team's awesome. So thank you. I can't wait to see it on telly.
Absolutely, nor can I. I appreciate it, mate. All the best. We'll catch up very, very soon. Cheers,
mate. See ya.
Okay, so for everyone watching, once again, it's never too late to make a change. It doesn't matter how big or how small. There is an opportunity for you to reduce your carbon footprint. And remember, by doing so, you can actually reduce your bills and your overheads as well. So for any ideas on that, jump onto our website, ngmatters.com.au. And if you're specifically looking to get a quote for some new technology, be it energy, renewable energy technology, solar power, energy efficiency, then just / free solar quotes, and you'll be able to get a quote for that as well. Other than that, please follow us on our social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can watch these videos, those of the past, and also check out our television show coming out on the 29th of March this year, which will be on 9 Life on the 9 Network, 4 p.m., which is on a Saturday. Okay, see you then, and take care for now. Bye-bye.